This video, you all can thank a gentleman named Justin Millington. And so he posted a comment on the last video where I was showing how my dog perceives the remote collar. In that video, he said, do you ever give your dog corrections? And I will put his comment up here. We're gonna go through this. I'm gonna be as fast as possible, but in order to be fast about this, I have to kind of detail things and whatnot to clear confusion so people can understand what it is that I'm doing inside of our training system, eFlow. All right, so we're looking at his comment up here and he says, do you ever give your dog corrections? There's some other stuff inside there. All right, so we have to understand what corrections are. I assume he's referring to what most people refer to whenever someone says correct the dog or give the dog a correction, all right? And so my assumption is that he's asking me if I ever give my dog a punishment whenever they do something they're not supposed to do. And so let's go through all this. I got a cheat sheet right here, so you're gonna see me looking down. We first have to look at the word correct. What does it mean to correct? What does correct mean in general? All right, one, I'm put these definitions up too. One, to make or to put right. Two, to remove the errors or mistakes from. And three, to indicate or mark the errors in. All right, so out of this, I will tell you that the first two I definitely do. The first one is make or to put right. Okay, so I make it right. I put him back into place. And what that means is, let's say I'm healing my dog and my dog just stops healing with me or tries to go somewhere else. I just bring my dog back to heal. All right, so how I do that is by telling my dog to heal again. All right, so there's nothing in there that I'm doing to the dog. I'm just having the dog do what it is. So I don't tell him anything bad, okay? I don't do anything bad to him. Same thing for number two, to remove the errors or mistakes from. Yeah, I'm eliminating mistakes by providing solutions. All right, and then number three is to indicate or mark the errors in. My assumption is like you're indicating, you're marking. That's what comes to mind to me. Maybe I'm misunderstanding part three, but based off of my assumption of part three, I'm not doing that. I don't mark the dog with a no, an ot, a bad dog, phooey, 9, you know, whatever people tell their dog that they did a bad job. I don't mark that at all. So all I do is I tell the dog what I need from them, okay? So correct was not the word, right? So we're just going through this all together. So he didn't say correct. He said, do you ever give your dog corrections? All right, so let's look at what correction means. The act or process of correcting. All right, well, in order to understand correction, we have to understand what correcting is. So let's jump to correcting. All right, the definition of that is the act of offering an improvement to replace a mistake. Okay, well, by definition, that's exactly what I just explained about the word correct. So the act or process of correcting means to the act or offering an improvement to replace a mistake. So yes, if the dog starts to do something I don't want them to do, I offer a replacement. So if the dog's jumping up, I tell them to sit. If the dog's running away, I tell them to come. If I tell the dog to sit and he lays down, I just tell him to sit again. So I just tell the dog I replace the bad behavior with the good behavior. Okay, so let's go back to correction part two. Something offered or substituted for a mistake or fault. That's what I just did. Yes, it's the same thing. And then we have a part in here that is a big difference. All right, so part three is punishment intended to rehabilitate or improve. So let's look at what punishment is so we don't mess this up. All right, so punishment, we're gonna look at the definition here. Definition of punishment is the imposition of a penalty or deprivation for wrongdoing. It's also a penalty imposed for wrongdoing. Those two are basically the same thing. Number three is where we get a little different. Rough treatment or use. So I can tell you 100%, people have trained with me, know me, all that stuff. I do not punish the dog. I do not reprimand the dog. I do not give a penalty to the dog. I don't withhold anything from the dog. I don't physically hit the dog. I don't give like snaps or pops to tell the dog he did wrong. I don't, that stuff is not part of my training system. So as far as correction goes, the first two parts fit that. Okay, so the third part does not fit that. So I'm letting you guys, I'm just telling you what I'm doing, and I'm just making sure I go through this so everybody is not like, well, he's just bending words and he's doing this. I'm being as transparent as possible and trying to explain to you, and then I'll explain to you why, okay? Do I correct my dog? By definition, 100% I correct my dog. But I want everybody to understand what I'm trying to explain is I don't penalize, punish, or do anything negative to my dog. I don't even tell my dog no. You can go back through years of videos that I've posted, long videos of long training sessions. And if you've ever noticed, maybe some of you have, I never tell the dog they did something wrong. I always tell the dog what I want from them. That's basically it, okay? So some people may say, well, of course you don't tell them that you did something wrong or they did something wrong. You use a remote collar. That's what the previous video was for. And so I have that video link in the description. So you guys can look at that. It's in my gallery very close to this video. And I'm demonstrating that my dog does not perceive the collar as anything negative. So that clears that up too. So the big thing is, what I do is I provide solutions for my problems. But in order to provide the solution to the problem, the dog has to understand what the solution is. So for, like I said, I tell the dog to sit down if they jump on somebody. The dog has to understand sit fluently. And what I mean by that is not just the understanding of put your butt on the ground. The dog has to have an in-depth understanding of what sit means in order to give sit as a solution. Same thing for a recall. I can't just tell the dog to come when he runs away and expect him to understand how to come to me if he's never been conditioned in many ways how to come to me. And what I mean by that is, not a quiet room where we just have that. We actually spend time, and I have people pet and touch my dog and then teach my dog how to come to me even when other people are engaging. Same thing, I will recall my dog while I throw objects past him like a ball or retrieve toys, something he wants. I will do recalls with decoys trying to distract and agitate my dog. So my dog's understanding of come here is very high. And so that's what I mean. Now that I have a proofed behavior and a very strong understanding with my dog on what I want, I can offer a replacement for a bad behavior. So the big thing about that is we speed the process up. Instead of going through and correcting and punishing the dog for doing bad things and then having to go through and build behavior, we actually just build the behavior under those distractions that would cause bad things. And so we're doing two things at once. This is how, another part of the system where I said in the last video, the remote collar is a very small fraction of what our training system is. This is a big piece of our training system that we explain to people that speeds the process up and clarification for the dog to understand what's happening for many different pictures. Okay, so why am I not big on reprimands or corrections? All right, well, this is why. Do I believe that dogs give other dogs corrections? Totally. But I also believe that dogs can speak dog to give a lot of information to the dog that they're leading up to a consequence or correction. And last time I checked, I don't see anybody walking around with tails and posturing up to a dog. And there's one person that probably does that. But I don't see anybody who speaks dog fluently. Okay, so it's hard to punish somebody for something they don't understand. And the examples I gave are this. Most of us have had a job or have a job or whatever's going on, okay? If you walked into wherever you worked at and they just handed a piece of paper to you and said, you're being written up, sign here, would you sign it? Almost everybody I ask this question to, they're like, no way. And I say, why? I let them tell me in their own words. Well, I don't know what I'm being written up for. Okay, so you require an explanation on what you did wrong in order for you to accept or think about accepting the reprimand. And they're like, absolutely. I say, is there anything else you need? And most people tell me this, not everybody, but most people, they go even further. They're like, well, I would like to know how to avoid this future action, in future situations. Like, how do I avoid? So I need a plan of action to maintain success, to be able to meet their expectations. And I'm like, you're really thinking that's intelligent. That's really good. And I say, well, what about kids? Let's look at kids. If we put a kid in timeout or we send the kid to the room or whatever, we do some type of penalty or whatever it is to the kid, what takes place after the penalty? And people are like, well, we usually talk to them about what they did wrong. Okay, great. You try. Can we at least agree we try to with the kids? And they say, of course we try to. And I say, well, what are we talking about when we say, both of us are saying we try? Well, they're very young and they may not understand what you're trying to explain to them, which is part of the reason why they're there in the first place, because they don't understand some certain rules or boundaries or behaviors that they can't do here, but they can do here because their mind is so young. And I'm like, that's perfect. I go, what do we do afterwards? Even after we tell them while they're in timeout, what do we do? And they say, well, same thing we do with us as adults. We have to have some type of talk that explains to them what it is that we need from them to help them stay successful. Okay, so this is what I figured out. Through dog training, I see people given consequences, reprimands, punishments, all this stuff. But the problem that I see is that it's not fair in a lot of scenarios. And the reason why I say it's not fair in a lot of scenarios is because you can't explain to the dog what they did wrong. All right, we can say, well, they know what they did because the way they looked. Oh, anybody who's married will tell you that their spouse does not have to tell them when they're in a bad mood to know that they're in a bad mood. And then I also ask those people, if you know they're in a bad mood, does it affect the way that you act around them? And they say, most definitely. So just because your dog's aware that you are not happy with them does not mean that they understand why you are not happy with them. So we have to be fair about that, okay? And people also tell me that their dog shows what I would call signs of remorse. And I always say this, if your dog shows signs of remorse, if they're so remorseful, why do they keep repeating the same behavior again? And they're like, I don't know, and I'm just like, I do, because they don't know what it is that's causing you to be upset. It's giving you, a false understanding that they actually know what it is that they did wrong. So just because our dog shows us that they know that we're upset with them does not mean that stuff. Okay, so what happens is, in my understanding, is we start to damage the relationship. All right, we start to make it very hard for them to try the right things because they're afraid in some scenarios. That's why people don't like what they call adversive training methods, because they see it. They see the avoidance. They see the fear. They see the shutdown. They see the confidence go way down. And so I don't blame those people. So that's why I believe that it's very important to give solutions, be proactive, and not reactive. Give the dog the understanding of what they need. And if the dog isn't set or prepared to be in that scenario, then we shouldn't be putting them in that scenario. So if you don't have the ability to relay the information to the dog, that's our accountability and our job to go back in and condition those behaviors to where the dog understands what it is that we need from them, so we can go out in public and start showing the dog, or go into those scenarios that are difficult to start showing the dog what it is. So to sum this all up, I use corrections, but my correction isn't what you think it is. I am correcting the course of my dog's behavior or action. I am not correcting my dog in a way where I'm punishing them or penalizing them or being rough, treatment or use, all those other definitions that were down there. So it's just like a car. If the car starts to veer to the left, we would turn the wheel to the right to stay in the lane. We are not punishing the car, but we are correcting the course in which the car is traveling. Hope this makes sense. And I don't expect anybody to believe me or agree with me. I'm just answering a question. We're going to do some of these videos where we're answering people's questions. We may even do some live videos. Let me know what you guys think about that. Going live and you guys throw stuff at me and I just start answering questions. Not making any promises. This is big deal for me doing a talking video. I don't do a lot of these talking videos. I always like to train dogs. Why? Because I believe it's important to be out there and demonstrate what it is that you can do, unedited, right? What I mean by unedited is a long duration. Throw music on there, whatever it is, fancy stuff, whatever, make the video look good. But I believe it's very important to put out videos that are up for a long duration of time, that show consistency in behavior, and you can actually hear what the trainer's telling the dog. So there's no deception in there. So if I tell the dog to sit, you can see whether he sat or didn't sit. If I tell him to come to me, you can see that stuff. So that's what I believe in. And so I'm getting used to these talking videos, so bear with me. It's been hard for me to do videos like this because I feel like anytime I say something, there has to be something demonstrated to back it up. But anyways, we'll see you next video.